Most people think responsibility makes you strong, but sometimes responsibility makes you disappear. From the outside, you look solid, reliable, the one who has it together. You're the person everyone trusts, the one who doesn't panic, the one who shows up early, stays late, and rarely complains. People see maturity. They see composure. They see someone who grew up fast and handled it well. But what they don't see is the quiet cost of being that person. The part of you that learned, very early on, that love was something you earned by being useful. If this is already making your chest feel a little tight, stay with me. Because this video isn't about blaming your parents. And it's not about diagnosing you. It's about understanding a role you may have stepped into so early, you forgot it was optional. There's a metaphor that fits this experience perfectly. Imagine being handed a shield as a child. At first, it protects you. It keeps chaos away. It gives you purpose. But over time, that same shield gets heavier. It becomes something you can't put down. You don't even remember who you were before you were carrying it. Psychology has a name for this. It's called parentification. And before your brain goes academic, pause. This isn't a clinical lecture. It's a mirror. Because parentification isn't just about doing chores or babysitting your siblings. It's about becoming emotionally responsible for things that were never meant to be yours. And today, we're going to talk about where that starts, how it shapes your personality, and why so many firstborns grow into adults who are admired by everyone, except themselves. And by the end, you may finally understand why resting feels uncomfortable, why asking for help feels unnatural, and why love still feels like something you have to prove. Let's slow this down. If you were the firstborn who became the second parent, your childhood probably didn't feel dramatic. That's important. It didn't feel abusive. It didn't feel chaotic all the time. In fact, it might have felt normal. That's the trick. Parentified children rarely describe their childhood as traumatic. They describe it as busy, heavy, serious. You learned the emotional weather of the house before you learned your multiplication tables. You knew when to stay quiet, when to be helpful, when to step in without being asked. You didn't wait for instructions, you anticipated needs. And people praised you for it. You're so mature for your age. I don't know what we'd do without you. You're the responsible one. Those words feel good when you're young. They feel like love. But here's the subtle shift that changes everything. At some point, you stopped being valued for who you were and started being valued for what you could handle. And that's where the second parent is born. Not because anyone sat you down and said, "You're in charge now," but because the system rewarded you for stepping in. So you did it again, and again, and again. You mediated arguments that weren't yours. You carried emotional information that was too heavy for a child. You became the translator, the stabilizer, the buffer. And slowly, without anyone meaning harm, your needs became inconvenient. Not ignored, just postponed. And postponed needs don't disappear. They wait. Here's a question I want you to sit with for a moment. When you think back to your childhood, do you remember feeling needed more than you remember feeling nurtured? That distinction matters more than it seems. Because being needed gives you purpose. But being nurtured gives you permission to exist without performing. Now here's where this gets psychologically interesting and emotionally uncomfortable. Many firstborns who became second parents grow up with an identity built around competence. You don't just do responsible things. You are the responsible one. And that identity follows you into adulthood. You're the friend everyone calls in a crisis. The coworker who fixes problems that aren't technically theirs. The partner who manages the emotional temperature of the relationship. You're good at it. Scarily good. But there's a shadow side no one talks about. Because when your worth is tied to being capable, rest starts to feel like failure. Let me say that again, slowly. When your worth is tied to being capable, rest feels like failure. Joy feels unproductive. Needing feels shameful. And receiving feels awkward. You don't relax. You power down. And even then, part of you stays alert. Here's a truth that might sting a little. Many firstborn second parents don't struggle with self-esteem. They struggle with self-permission. You don't think you're worthless. You just don't think you're allowed to stop. And this is where relationships start to get complicated. Because unconsciously, you may recreate the same role. You're drawn to people who need guidance, who need support, who need stabilizing. Not because you want to control them, but because chaos feels familiar and usefulness feels safe. But safety isn't the same as intimacy. Intimacy requires mutual dependence. And that's hard when you learned early on that you were the dependable one. So you give, you hold, you manage, and quietly, you hope someone will notice how tired you are, without you having to say it. Now pause here. If this resonates, you might be feeling two things at once: relief and resistance. Relief because something finally has a name. Resistance because part of you is thinking, but it made me strong. And you're not wrong. Parentification does build strengths. You're perceptive, emotionally intelligent, reliable under pressure. But strength that was built too early often comes with grief. Grief for the child who didn't get to be careless, who didn't get to fall apart, who didn't get to be held instead of holding everything together. And here's the part that rarely gets said out loud. You're allowed to miss a childhood you didn't hate. Let that land. You don't have to villainize your parents to acknowledge the cost. Most parents who lean on their firstborn didn't intend harm. They were overwhelmed, stressed, doing the best they could with what they had. But impact doesn't require intention. And the impact is this: you learn to measure love by usefulness. So as an adult, you might feel oddly uncomfortable when things are calm, when no one needs you, when there's nothing to fix. Silence feels suspicious. Ease feels temporary. And your nervous system stays in low-grade readiness mode. This is why burnout hits firstborn second parents differently. You don't burn out because you're weak. You burn out because you don't recognize your own limits until you've passed them. You were trained to override discomfort, to push through, to handle it. So you do, until your body says no in ways your mind can't argue with. Fatigue, resentment, emotional numbness. And then comes the guilt. Because if you're not the responsible one, who are you? That's not a rhetorical question. That's the core identity crisis. Here's a gentle reframe. You were never born to be a role. You adapted into one. And adaptations can be unlearned, not erased, integrated. This is where healing actually begins, not with quitting responsibility, but with redefining it. Responsibility doesn't have to mean self-sacrifice. Care doesn't have to mean self-neglect. Love doesn't have to be earned through exhaustion. But I won't lie to you, this shift feels deeply uncomfortable at first. Because when you stop overfunctioning, guilt shows up. Old guilt, inherited guilt, the kind that whispers, if I don't do it, something will fall apart. Sometimes that's true, and sometimes it's just the echo of a child who learned they were the glue. Here's another mid-video pause point. Ask yourself this honestly. Do you feel more anxious disappointing others or disappointing yourself? If the answer is others, you're not broken. You're patterned, and patterns can change. One of the most powerful steps for firstborn second parents is learning to tolerate being misunderstood, to let someone else be uncomfortable, to allow things to be imperfect without rushing in. Not out of spite, out of self-respect. And this doesn't mean becoming selfish or cold. It means becoming balanced. It means letting care flow both directions. It means discovering that you are lovable even when you are not useful. That realization alone can feel revolutionary. Now let's talk about something rarely addressed: the anger. Yes, anger. Many parentified firstborn suppress anger because it feels dangerous. Anger threatens the role. Anger disrupts stability. So instead, it turns inward. You criticize yourself. You hold yourself to impossible standards. You feel irritated at people who can't handle things without you. But that anger isn't a flaw. It's information. It's the part of you that knows something was unbalanced. Listening to it doesn't make you ungrateful. It makes you honest. And honesty is where real healing lies. Next time you feel the urge to step in automatically, pause for 3 seconds. Just 3. Ask yourself, is this mine to carry, or am I defaulting to a role? Sometimes you'll still step in, and that's okay. But sometimes you won't, and the world will not collapse. That's when your nervous system begins to learn something new. Now, let's talk about the quiet fear underneath all of this. The fear that if you stop being the strong one, you'll be abandoned. That people only love you because you're reliable. This fear makes sense, because early on, reliability was rewarded with connection. But adult relationships can be different. They can be when you let yourself be seen in your fatigue, your uncertainty, your needs. You give others the chance to meet you there. Not everyone will, and that's painful. But the ones who do, those relationships feel radically different, lighter, mutual, alive. And here's the paradox that brings us full circle. The strength you developed as a second parent doesn't disappear when you heal. It becomes voluntary. You don't stop being capable. You stop being compelled. And that distinction changes everything. You become someone who chooses to help, not someone who feels responsible for everyone's emotional survival. Before we close, I want to ask you something, and this is also today's call to action. In the comments, answer this honestly, even if it's just one sentence. Growing up, were you praised more for being responsible or for being yourself? Read other answers if you want. You'll see patterns. You'll see echoes. And if this video felt like it was describing you a little too accurately, that's not an accident. This channel is about understanding the invisible forces that shape us, so we can loosen their grip. In the next video, we'll explore what happens when firstborn second parents try to rest, and why rest can feel more threatening than stress. Because healing doesn't start with doing more. Sometimes, it starts with finally putting the shield down, and realizing you were never meant to carry it alone.